Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's edition of Ipswich Town Transfer Talk. I'm your host, Mark Heath, and with me this week is Andy Warren to talk about everything that's going on at Ipswich Town. And there's been a lot. You see on the ticker at the bottom there, Town have already signed 6 players, 4 in the last week. And if you want to hear what we make of all of those, go back and listen to the latest Kings of Anglia podcast, where we talk all about that and also pick out our signing of the season so far. But Hutchie, we're here to talk about potential signings, and we're going to start with the beast, the tank, the unit that is Matt Crooks at Rotherham. We know Town are very interested in signing him, bringing him into the Star-Spangled Revolution at Portman Road this summer. And you've got an update for us. What's the latest with Crooks?
That's an exciting one, isn't it? I think people look at that and see it as a bit of a statement if they can get it done. Not only obviously a player that's bullied Ipswich in the past and been a top performer at this level. He's played at championship level. Obviously last season with Rotherham, did well there, and Rotherham back down now. So if they can get him, they'll be stealing a big player away from a promotion rival. This week is kind of the beginning of the bidding process. Almost reports from Rotherham of a £400,000 bid being rejected coming from Ipswich. We understand that is indeed the case. That bid has gone in, maybe not quite at the £400,000 mark, but certainly in the in that ballpark. And they're going to go back in for more. This isn't one that they're being put off by that rejection. I think Rotherham have probably made it quite clear that it would need to be upped significantly in order to get the deal done. But I don't think Ipswich will shy away from that. He's a big target for them this summer, and I think they're preparing to go back in with another bid. They want to get their man, and there's a confidence within the club that they can get him.
In terms of priorities, how highly does Crooks sit in what Paul Cook wants to do and players he wants to bring in? You say there he's one of the top ones, is he?
I think so. I think there's no secret there's going to be a lot more players coming in, another 5 or 6, I would imagine, maybe even minimum. But I think he's right at the top of that list. He, as I said a minute ago, he'd be a statement. He's a unique kind of player, but a talented player too. He'd come in as that number 10, playing behind a striker and bring something really different to Ipswich, which they've just not had. And he's a good player, and if they can get him done, I think that would stand up on the sheet as probably being the signing of the summer so far, not just at Ipswich but across the league.
100%. So that's the latest on Crooks. Now we know obviously Town have already brought 6 in. We know they're going to be looking for more, and ones are definitely going to be looking to bring in as defenders, Hutchie, particularly centre halves. And you've done a story, broke it at lunchtime, that they're interested in a young Everton defender. Just tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's Lewis Gibson. He's a name some people might know. He's been linked with Ipswich before. They were very close to getting this deal done. This would have been a loan deal back in January of 2020. Left-sided centre half, good pedigree, but for whatever reason, back in January of 2020, they couldn't get that deal done at the time. I think there was a confidence that it was very close, and ultimately, perhaps his contract negotiations at Everton got in the way of that being done. But yeah, he's another one they like now. It's not. I don't think it's one that's going to happen immediately, but he's certainly a player that's under consideration. A left-sided centre half, like gold dust, as the great Paul Lambert used to tell us. He's clearly got some pedigree. That's not to say that he's the kind of the number one central defensive target. I think even if they were able to get him, and it could be a loan deal, but I've also been told there's every chance they could push for a permanent deal on this one. I think what they really want as centre half there is an experienced campaigner as well. So there's every chance that there could be 2 bodies coming in there at centre half. But if a deal for Lewis Gibson did present itself to Town, that is one that they would go for, I think.
Good stuff. And in terms of players and positions that we know Town are looking to bring in and fill this summer, wingers also one of those. Michael Jacobs been linked before, but earlier this week, we had a little bit of an update with the Portsmouth boss, Danny Cowley, actually confirming there had been discussions. What's the latest there, Hutchie? Any update on that?
Probably no update from that, but yeah, there have been discussions per reports the previous week. I think it was Danny Cowley's confirmed that. He's a player Paul Cook knows from Wigan. He can play either side in terms of wing positions, and can play a little bit of number 10 as well, which Cook likes. He likes that versatility, and he's a player that's done well for him before. It's one I can really see them going for. They may just have to wait a little bit though, per our report, probably 10 days or so ago now. He is still dealing with injuries from the back end of last season, and I think that's maybe holding that up a little bit. I think there are concerns from Ipswich's point of view about those injuries. There are concerns from Portsmouth's side about those injuries too. So for that reason, I can see a deal. I can see a deal being done for that one, but it may just have to wait a little longer.
Exciting times, Andy. Obviously, they've already signed 6 players. We know that 20 roughly have departed from last season. Paul Cook has made a point of saying that signings certainly haven't stopped. But I want your prediction, please. How many more players are Town going to sign? 6 in. How many more do you reckon we're going to get in this summer like no other?
I'm going to say another 6.
Yes.
Which would allow us to talk about the dirty dozen, which would be great. But no, I think they probably will sign possibly the same again. It might be even more. It really could be even more. And there could well be more departures too.
On that note, that brings us perfectly on to the exiled players currently training with the under-23s. Paul Cook has sent the likes of Flynn Downs, Teddy Bishop, Miles Kenlock down to train with the kids. There's also some quotes out there from Paul saying the door is never closed on those sort of players. But how realistic do you think it is that any of those players can come back into the first team reckoning? And is there any update in terms of interest in the likes of Downs and Bishop?
Well, on the first point, the door has to be open, because that's how you get the best out of people. But in saying that, it would, at this point, it would really surprise me if any of those four players. It was 6, of course. Jack Lancaster was down there as well, and he's left for Cambridge. Armando Dobra has made a jump from originally being on that 23s list to the first team. But of the 4 that are remaining, which is Flynn Downs, Teddy Bishop, Miles Kenlock, and who am I forgetting? There's another one down. There's another player down there. But of those 4, I would be at this point. At this point, I would be surprised. I think if Caden Jackson, I'd be surprised at this point if any of them came up and did anything significant in terms of the first team. That's not to say that there can't be some involvement potentially, depending on who's still here come August time and everything kicking off. But in terms of making a significant contribution, it would surprise me at this point. But I'm glad to hear the door's still open, because that's a healthy way to be.
In terms of the pick of the bunch there, I guess people would look at Flynn Downs and say he's the player that is most surprisingly training down there, and he's probably Town's biggest saleable asset. Is it just a matter of getting the right amount of money for Downs, do you reckon, this summer? I mean, is he kind of on his way out the door, do you think?
Sadly, yeah. I think that's probably the case. I think it was well documented what happened last summer with Crystal Palace. He really wanted that move. He pushed for that move. The transfer request came in. It didn't happen for him, and he ended up missing a fair amount of football actually at the start of the season, just kind of getting his head right before then having a year disrupted by injury. The market's not quite there for him in that way again this summer. There is interest. Peterborough, very, very strong Peterborough interest in Flynn Downs, Barnsley too, although the initial interest there was before a managerial change. But Peterborough, very strong interest in him. But it is about now, at this point, agreeing a fee. I would say at this point, I'd be surprised again to see Flynn Downs playing in an Ipswich shirt, sadly. And I say sadly because we know how good a player he is. He's got all the ability that you want, certainly all the ability that Paul Cook would want from a central midfielder. But one big thing that Paul Cook wants is full focus and players wanting to be here. If that's not the case, then I think he's made it pretty clear that he can be quite ruthless in what he does. So yeah, in terms of Flynn, yeah, I'd be surprised if he plays again.
Yeah, Paul Cook certainly being ruthless, also making some moves this summer. There you go then. That's brought you up to speed with everything going on at Ipswich Town transfer-wise as we understand it at the moment. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the England versus Ukraine game and come back to us next week for all the latest Ipswich Town news, podcasts and videos.